I didn't walk into marriage expecting fireworks every night. I knew things would settle. Life gets busy. Work, bills, kids, stress. I get all that. But nothing prepares you for when love slowly turns into silence. I'm Lucas. I'm 41. I've been married to Nicole for 13 years. Or, I guess, was married. I'm still getting used to saying that. When I met Nicole, she was magnetic, outgoing, smart, always laughing. I was never the loudest guy in the room, but I had my stuff together. Worked construction, had my own truck, paid my bills, kept it real. She said she liked that about me, said I was solid. For the first few years, we were tight. Not just physically, emotionally too. We'd stay up late, watching movies, taking road trips on weekends, texting each other flirty stuff during the day. We had that spark. Then, somewhere after year 6 or 7, I started to notice it. She stopped laughing at my jokes. Not because they were bad, but like she wasn't even listening. She'd come home from work, say she was tired, and sit on the couch scrolling through her phone. I'd come up behind her to kiss her on the neck, and she'd flinch like my touch annoyed her. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was stressed. Her job at the school got more demanding. She started staying late for meetings, coming home drained. I didn't complain. I cooked dinner, folded laundry, even ran her bath some nights, just so she could relax. I thought, maybe if I show her love, it'll come back around. But the thing is, it didn't. It got worse. The kisses turned into cheek taps. The hugs turned into quick sidearm squeezes. And the bedroom? That became a desert. I brought up one night, gently said, "Hey, I miss us." She gave me this half-hearted smile and said, "I'm just not in the mood lately. It's not you." That lately became months. I'm not shallow. I wasn't asking for fireworks. I just wanted to feel wanted, to feel like a man in my own home. But every time I'd try, whether it was a compliment, a touch, a look, I'd get shut down. And not just with a "not tonight." I'm talking the kind of rejection that makes you feel invisible. One time, I set up a whole weekend trip to the lake, rented a cabin, packed everything. I thought maybe some fresh air would help us reconnect. We sat by the fire, just the two of us, stars overhead, and she spent most of the night on her phone texting her sister or watching reels. That night, when I tried to pull her close, she said, "Can you not? I just want to be left alone." That one stung. Over time, I stopped trying, not out of spite, out of survival. Every time I reached out and got pushed away, it chipped something off me. Piece by piece, I felt smaller, unseen, like a ghost in my own house. But I still stayed. I still hoped. I still paid the bills, mowed the lawn, fixed the leaky sink, asked her how her day was. Because that's what men do, right? We hold it down. We don't make a scene. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a regular Thursday. She was watching her true crime shows, legs curled up on the couch. I walked in and sat beside her. Not even close, just sat. I looked at her and said, "Do you think we could talk after the episode?" She muted the TV, sighed loud like I was interrupting, the best part, and said, "What is it now?" I didn't raise my voice. I just said, "I miss feeling close to you. I miss being us." She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I have no desire for intimacy. Not with you. I don't feel that way anymore." Just like that. Cold, mechanical. Like she was telling me we were out of milk. I didn't respond right away. My mouth went dry. My chest felt tight. I stared at her for a second, trying to find some trace of love, of empathy, of something in her face. But she just turned back to the TV and unmuted it. That was it. That was the moment something in me snapped. Not in anger, but in clarity. Wasn't just about sex. It was about being unwanted, unloved, unappreciated. I had poured everything I had into this relationship. I gave her years of loyalty, presence, effort, and all I got in return was silence and distance. So I stood up, didn't say a word, didn't slam the door. I just got up, walked to the bedroom, grabbed a gym bag, threw in some clothes, my phone charger and my toothbrush, and walked out. She didn't even ask where I was going. I drove to my buddy Mason's house, slept on his couch that night. When he asked what happened, I just said, "She doesn't want me." I'm done trying to convince her. It wasn't a movie scene. There was no dramatic argument or rain pouring down on me. It was just quiet, still, empty. And in that silence, I realized something. I had been trying to resuscitate a love that had died a long time ago. I was the only one still in the fight, and that wasn't love. That was slow emotional suicide. You know what's crazy? No one teaches you how to leave a relationship where nothing happened on the surface. No cheating, no screaming matches, no abuse. Just slow neglect, just absence, just the day-to-day erosion of love. But that neglect kills you too. Sometimes even worse, because there's no scar to point at, no story to tell, just this dull, aching loneliness that you try to smile through until you can't anymore. I didn't leave because I stopped loving her. I left because I finally realized she stopped loving me a long time ago. And I was too proud, too loyal, or too blind to admit it. That was the last night I slept under the same roof as Nicole. And the first night, I finally slept without a weight on my chest. The air felt different the second I stepped outside. It was late, almost midnight, but I wasn't tired, not angry, just wide awake in that sharp, hyper-aware kind of way your mind gets when something big shifts inside you. Like something broke, but in a way that made space instead of a mess. I tossed my bag into the back seat of a truck. My hands were shaking a little, but not from fear. It was a strange kind of peace. A bitter one, sure, but peaceful nonetheless. I wasn't running. I wasn't yelling. I was just done. I got in, turned the key, headlights blinked on, and then I heard a voice behind me. "Lucas, wait." I turned my head, and there she was. Kristen, Nicole's best friend. She had pulled up in her little black sedan, park crooked at the curb, like she'd just slammed it into park and jumped out. She jogged up to my window, wearing flip-flops, pajama pants, and a big gray hoodie that said Wilmington Beach. I rolled the window halfway down. "Hey!" She was breathing hard. "I saw your truck pull out. I was dropping off some leftover wine. What's going on?" I paused. My hand was still on the gear shift. I could have driven off. I should have, but something in her face stopped me. It wasn't just concern. It was knowing. Her eyes weren't surprised. They looked tired, so I just said it. Nicole told me she has no desire to be close to me. Said it straight, so I left. Kristen looked away for a second, biting the inside of her cheek. She didn't say, "I'm sorry." She didn't try to cover for her. She just sighed. Then she said something I didn't expect. I figured it would come to this sooner or later. That hit me sideways. "What do you mean?" I asked. She stepped back a little and leaned on the side of the truck, arms folded. "You want me to be honest?" I nodded. She hesitated, like she was wrestling with whether to speak as Nicole's friend or as someone who actually cared about me as a person. Then she said, "She's been talking about you differently for a long time now, saying things like he's always around or he doesn't get it or that you're too soft." At first, I thought it was just venting. Everybody complains about their partner sometimes. But then it got colder. My jaw clenched, but I didn't interrupt. I just listened. She said stuff like you were too emotional, that you always wanted her attention, like I was a bad thing. I told her she was lucky to have a guy who actually gives a damn, but she'd just laugh it off. Said she missed being chased, whatever that means. Kristen shook her head. I didn't want to believe it, but I started seeing it in the way she talked to you, especially in front of people. I'd watch her roll her eyes when you complimented her, or interrupt you like what you were saying didn't matter. It made me uncomfortable. I looked straight ahead, hands gripping the steering wheel. She ever tell you about that night we had wine at my place a couple months ago? Kristen asked. I shook my head slowly. She was tipsy. She said you were too nice. Said she missed guys with more edge. I remember I asked her, so you want a jerk? And she just said, not a jerk, just someone who doesn't make me feel guilty for not wanting to cuddle all the time. That stung. It stung worse than I thought it would. Kristen must have seen the look on my face because she touched my arm gently through the window. Lucas, I know that hurts. I'm sorry. I don't want to pile it on, but you deserve to know you're not crazy. You're not asking for too much. You were just trying to be loved back. I let out a long breath. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I wanted to. I almost did a few times. But it's hard, you know? She's my friend. I didn't know if you'd even believe me. People don't like the messenger. I nodded. I couldn't blame her. The thing is hearing it out loud. All the things I felt but never had proof of. It didn't make me angry. It made me sad. It confirmed that the rejection wasn't just in my head. I wasn't imagining it. She'd stopped seeing me as her partner a long time ago. I was just the guy who paid for things, fixed the Wi-Fi, picked her up when her car broke down. But never the guy she wanted. Kristen took a step back. Look, I'm not trying to insert myself. I just didn't want you to drive off thinking none of it made sense. It makes sense. She changed. She stopped seeing your worth. But that doesn't mean your worth disappeared. I looked at her for a long second. It was strange. She wasn't crying or being overly dramatic. She was just being human, raw, real. You're the first person to say that, I said. She gave me a tired smile. It's true. I've seen it for years. You always showed up. You planned things. You remembered her mom's birthday when she forgot. You were always steady. Some people don't know what to do with steady until they lose it. Silence hung in the air between us. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. A porch light flicked on across the road. Then Kristen said something that stuck with me for weeks. Don't let her coldness convince you that you're hard to love. She just stopped appreciating what mattered. That's on her, not you. I nodded slowly. Thank you. She looked down at the ground, then back up. If you need anything, even just someone to talk to, call me. I'm around. And then she walked back to her car, quietly, without another word. I sat in my truck for a few minutes. No music, no calls, just silence. And for the first time in months, maybe even years, I felt something come back to me. Not pride, not confidence, self-respect. It wasn't about winning or revenge. It wasn't about who was right or wrong. It was about reclaiming the parts of myself I had chipped away to keep the peace in a one-sided relationship. That night, I didn't drive to Mason's. I found a cheap little Airbnb on the edge of town. Just a bed, a small kitchen, and a quiet window view. I sat on the couch, cracked open a beer, and just existed. No accusations, no begging, no trying to fix what someone else had already let rot. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I knew I wasn't crawling back. Because someone who looks you in the eyes and says they have no desire for you, they've already left. They just didn't pack their bags. So I did it for both of us. I didn't sleep much that night in the Airbnb. Not because I was upset, not in the crying on the floor kind of way. That part of me was already long gone. What kept me awake was the weight of everything Kristen had said, spinning in my head like a loop I couldn't shut off. It wasn't just about what Nicole said. It was the realization that I had been trying to resuscitate something that had been publicly dead for a long time. I was the last one to know. That was the humiliation. And it wasn't just private coldness anymore. According to Kristen, my own wife had been turning me into a punchline behind closed doors. I didn't know what to do with that. There's no manual for that kind of pain. The next morning, I woke up groggy, checked my phone. 3 messages from Nicole. "Where are you? Seriously, you're being dramatic." That last one made me laugh out loud. Dramatic? The woman tells me she has zero desire for intimacy with me, and I'm the dramatic one for walking out the door with some dignity intact. I put the phone down and didn't reply. Around 10 a.m., Kristen texted me, "Are you okay?" I didn't sleep either. I sat there staring at that message for a bit. Then I wrote, "Can we talk?" "I feel like there's more." She replied almost instantly, "I'll come by." 25 minutes later, she pulled up. Same hoodie, hair tied up, coffee in hand. She looked exhausted, but there was no awkwardness, just realness. She walked in, sat down on the edge of the couch and said, "You're right, there's more." She didn't wait for me to prompt her. "Lucas, I think there's someone else." My stomach sank. I didn't say anything. I just nodded for her to continue. She took a sip of coffee and went on, choosing every word carefully. "Look, I don't have solid proof, but I've heard enough to trust my gut. And the stuff she says, the way she disappears for hours with no explanation, it doesn't sit right. A few weeks ago, she told me she needed time to clear her head and went to get some air around 9 p.m. She paused. I called her around 10 just to check in. She picked up but was out of breath. Said she was walking the track, but there were voices in the background. A man's voice. She said it was her brother on the phone, but her brother lives in Denver. I felt a heat rise up my neck, that cold, shaking kind of anger that doesn't explode, it just hardens. Kristen set the coffee down and leaned forward. I wasn't going to say anything. I don't want to be in the middle. But last night when I saw you, leaving like that, the way she looked at you like she didn't care if you were gone, I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I exhaled through my nose. My fists were clenched without me realizing it. She continued, "There's more. She's been flirting with this guy from her gym. Name's Derek. She said his name more than once, always in weird ways. Like Derek said this, or Derek helped me with my form today. At first I thought it was innocent. Then she said, and I quote, 'If I were single, he'd be in trouble.' I sat there, stunned, silent. Not shocked, more like confirmed. It all made sense now. The loss of interest, the constant shutdowns, the way she used to dress up for errands but wore old sweats around me, the locked phone, the sudden girls' nights that didn't add up. I'd been made into a placeholder. And now that Kristen was spelling it out, it all lined up like dominoes falling. She looked at me, her voice softer now. "Lucas, you've been holding up a house that she already moved out of emotionally. You deserve to stop," carrying the weight of her indifference. For a moment, I just sat there, letting the reality settle in. Then I asked something that surprised even me. Did she ever talk about me like she respected me? Like she loved me? Kristen shook her head slowly. "She talked about you like you were dependable, predictable, useful. But love? I didn't hear much of that anymore." I'm sorry. That was the final nail. It wasn't even about another man. That wasn't the deepest wound. The real pain came from knowing I had become background noise to someone I once would have taken a bullet for. I looked at Kristen. "Why are you telling me all this?" "Really?" She met my eyes. "Because I hate seeing good people get used." You were good to her. Too good. And she didn't just neglect that. She mocked it. I stood up, walked to the window, stared out at the stillness of the empty street. "I'm not going back." "Good," she said behind me. I turned back. "You're the only one who's been honest with me." She gave me a tired smile. "Maybe that's because I've watched you suffer in silence for too long." We talked for another hour. Not just about Nicole, but about life. About how sometimes people mistake comfort for love, and when the comfort no longer excites them, they discard it like it never mattered. That's what Nicole did. Before Kristen left, she looked me in the eye and said she's going to spin it. Make you the villain. Say you left for no reason. That's what people like her do. Don't fall into the trap of defending yourself to people who weren't in your marriage. That stuck with me. I watched her drive away, and for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to call Nicole, to explain, to ask for closure, because I already had it. That night, I called a lawyer. I canceled the joint credit cards. I took half the savings and put it in a private account. Not out of spite, just fairness. I left the rest. I blocked her. Ember. 2 days later, she showed up at my Airbnb. I didn't answer the door. I watched from inside as she knocked again, then eventually left. I didn't need to hear whatever script she had prepared. I already knew it by heart. That night changed everything. Because it wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It was about clarity, about respect, about finally choosing me after years of being last. On my own list. And oddly enough, I slept better than I had in years.